There's a quiet ache that lives in the spaces between people, not the loud, dramatic kind, the kind that shows up in the middle of the night when someone rolls over and reaches for a body that's no longer there, the kind that surfaces when a familiar song plays at a coffee shop or when someone opens a text message they know they'll never reply to. It's not just missing someone, it's feeling their absence like a missing limb, like a breath caught in the throat, and sometimes that ache is exactly what you want to leave behind. Not out of spite, not to hurt, but because you want to be remembered. You want to matter. You want to be the one they can't stop thinking about, the one who changed them, even after you're gone. But here's the twist. The more you chase that feeling, the more you beg, plead, cling, or perform, the less likely it is to happen. Desperation repels, neediness fades, obsession burns out. So how do you make someone miss you so deeply that your absence becomes a presence? How do you become unforgettable? Not through grand gestures, but through quiet strength. The answer isn't in manipulation, it's not in games, it's not in silence as punishment or attention as bait. The answer lies in Stoicism. Yes, the ancient philosophy of marble statues and bearded men in togas. The one that taught emperors how to rule, soldiers how to endure, and philosophers how to die. But beneath the cold exterior, Stoicism holds a profound truth about human connection. The deeper your inner peace, the more magnetic your presence becomes, even in absence, because people don't miss noise. This is about becoming so grounded, so self-contained, so complete within yourself that when you walk away, the world feels slightly off-kilter. Not because you were everything to them, but because your presence reminded them of who they could be, and when you're gone, that reminder echoes. So let's begin, not with tactics, not with tricks, but with truth. Chapter 1, the myth of control. We've all been there. You meet someone, sparks fly. Conversations last until sunrise. You laugh at the same dumb jokes. You finish each other's sentences. You start to believe, maybe, just maybe, this is it. And then, slowly, the shift. Start checking your phone too much. You analyze every text. You wonder why they didn't like your photo. You rehearse what to say before calling. You contort yourself to fit their world, to earn their attention, to keep them close. And then, one day, they're gone, and you're left with silence. And in that silence, you do what most people do. You try to fix it. You send a message, then another, then a voice note, then a just checking in. You'll try to reignite the flame with effort, with emotion, with desperation, and nothing works. Because here's the brutal truth, you cannot control someone's feelings. You cannot force someone to miss you. No amount of begging, no clever text, no grand gesture will make someone ache for you if they don't already value your presence. And this is the key, you can become so aligned with your own worth that your absence becomes a mirror. And that's where Stoicism begins. The Stoics didn't believe in controlling the world. They believed in mastering the self. Epictetus, a former slave-turned-philosopher, said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." That's the foundation. You don't control whether someone misses you, but you do control how you show up, how you leave, how you carry yourself in the silence. And that, more than any text, any GIF, any late-night call, is what lingers. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Lila. She fell for a man named Daniel, not in a whirlwind, but slowly, like sunlight creeping across a floor. He was thoughtful, quiet, the kind of man who remembered her favorite tea and brought it without being asked. They were together for 2 years. Then, without drama, without blame, it ended. He said he needed space. She asked for clarity. He couldn't give it. She was shattered, and like most of us, she did the predictable thing. She reached out once, then again, then a third time with a note that said, "I just want to understand." No reply. She called a mutual friend, checked his social media, wondered if he'd moved on, and then something shifted. She read a quote by Marcus Aurelius, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Something cracked open. She realized she was trying to control the uncontrollable. She was clinging to a version of reality where he still wanted her, but reality was different. He had walked away, so she made a decision, not to forget him, not to hate him, but to honor what they had by not diminishing herself in the aftermath. She stopped reaching out, stopped checking his photos, stopped imagining conversations. Instead, she started walking early in the morning before the city woke. She began journaling. She reconnected with old friends. She took a pottery class. She traveled alone to a small coastal town and sat by the sea for hours, just listening. She didn't do these things to get over him. She did them because they were hers, and something strange happened. 3 months later, Daniel texted, not with an apology, not with excuses, just 2 words. I miss you. Not I miss us. Not I regret it, but I miss you. And when she replied, calmly, kindly, without urgency, he said something that stayed with her. You were always so sure of yourself, even when we were together. And now that you're gone, I realize I wasn't just missing you. I was missing the version of me that existed when I was with you. That's the power of Stoic presence. Not manipulation, not silence as punishment, but inner sovereignty, so complete, so unshakable, that your absence doesn't just leave a gap, it leaves a question: who am I without them? That's how you make someone miss you badly, not by chasing, but by becoming. Our Chapter 2, The Art of Detachment. Most people think detachment means indifference. It doesn't. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, is not about coldness. It's not about shutting down. It's not about refusing to care. It's about freedom. It's about loving deeply, but not depending. It's about giving fully, but not losing yourself. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoics, wrote, "Attach yourself to people, but not so tightly that you break when they leave." That's the balance. Most relationships fail not because of lack of love, but because of lack of boundaries. We give everything, our time, our energy, our identity, until we become a reflection of the other person. And when they leave, we don't just lose them, we lose ourselves. So how do you detach without disconnecting? By practicing what the Stoics called preferred indifference. Here's what that means. Some things in life are good: virtue, wisdom, courage, justice. Some things are bad: vice, ignorance, cowardice, injustice. And then there are things that are indifferent, not good or bad in themselves, but what we do with them matters, like relationships, like love. And that's when you start doing things that make you forget your worth. You overtext, you over-explain, you apologize for existing, you contort, you shrink, and the more you do that, the less they miss you, because you're no longer the person they fell for. You've become a shadow. So detachment isn't about pulling away emotionally. It's about anchoring yourself so deeply in your own values that no external loss can destabilize you. Let me give you an example. Xavier met Elena at a bookstore. They'd bonded over poetry. She loved Neruda. He loved Rumi. They spent nights reading aloud to each other, their voices soft in the dark. They dated for a year. It was beautiful. Then Elena got a job offer abroad. She wasn't sure if she'd return. Javier was devastated. Most men would have begged her to stay, or demanded a long-distance commitment, or clung to promises. But Xavier was different. He said, "I love you, I'll miss you, but I won't stand in the way of your growth." And when she left, he didn't flood her inbox, he didn't guilt-trip her. He sent one message: "Go shine. I'll be here if you ever want to find me." Then he focused on his own life. He started writing, something he'd always wanted to do. He trained for a marathon. He volunteered at a youth center. He didn't do it to move on. He did it because it mattered to him. 6 months later, Elena called. She said, "Everyone keeps asking if I'm happy, and I say yes, but then I think of you, and I feel this quiet sadness, like I left something sacred behind." Xavier didn't reply with emotion. He said, "You didn't leave it behind. You carried it with you. It's in how you live now," she cried. And then she said, "I think I miss you not because I want you back, but because you made me feel like I was enough just as I was. And here, no one sees me like that." That's the power of detachment. When you love someone without needing them, you give them space to feel the depth of what they had. When you let go without resentment, you create a silence so full of meaning that it echoes. When you live your life with purpose, you become a benchmark. Was this better than what I left behind? And that question, that's what makes someone miss you badly. Not your texts, not your body, but the peace they felt when they were near you, because you weren't trying to fix them. You were already whole, and that's intoxicating. Chapter 3, The Power of Presence. Here's a paradox. The more present you are, the more unforgettable you become, even when you're gone. But most people get this backward. They think being memorable means being dramatic, loud, always available, always reacting. No. The most unforgettable people are the ones who are fully there. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They listen like every word matters. They speak like every sentence is a gift. They don't multitask. They don't check their phones. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's presence, not just loving but knowing you're loving, not just being with someone but feeling the weight and wonder of it. So how do you cultivate this? Not by trying to impress, but by practicing stillness, by learning to be comfortable in silence, by listening more than you speak, by noticing the small things, the way they sip their coffee, the way they laugh when they're nervous, the way their eyes light up when they talk about something they love. And when you notice, don't comment, don't analyze, just hold it, because those moments become sacred in memory. Let me tell you about Amara. She was in a relationship with a man named Theo. He was kind but distant, always on his phone, always distracted. Even when they were together, he was somewhere else. Then she met Elias. Elias didn't say much, but when he spoke, it mattered. One night, they sat on a rooftop watching the stars. Amara started talking about her fear of failure, how she'd wanted to be a dancer, but gave up after an injury. Elias didn't offer advice. He didn't say, "You should try again." He didn't minimize it. He just looked at her and said, "That must have been really hard." And in that moment she felt seen, not fixed, not judged, just held. They were only together for a few months. Life pulled them in different directions. But years later, Theo asked her, "Why did it never feel as deep with me as it did with him?" Amara said, "Because Elias didn't try to fill the silence, he let it breathe. And in that space I felt like I truly existed." That's the magic of presence. That's the magic of presence. When you're fully with someone, you imprint on their soul. And when you're gone, be deeper. Don't be more available, be more real. And when you leave, they won't just miss your voice. They'll miss the way you made the world feel slower, softer, more meaningful. Chapter 4. The discipline of desire. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is this: desire is not the problem. Misplaced desire is. We suffer not because we want love, connection, being missed. We suffer because we attach our happiness to outcomes we can't control. You can't control whether someone misses you, but you can't control whether you live with integrity. You can't control whether they return, but you can control whether you remain true to your values. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, "Demand not that events should happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." In modern terms, stop wishing the world were different. Start working with the world as it is. So what does this mean for making someone miss you? It means releasing the need for them to miss you, because the moment you need it, you lose it. Desperation is invisible to the one feeling it, but obvious to everyone else. So the Stoic path isn't about wanting to be missed. It's about living in such a way that if they miss you, it's because you were a force of calm, clarity, and strength. Not because you were clingy, not because you were dramatic, but because you were solid, like a mountain, like the sea, like something eternal. Let me tell you about Marcus. He was in love with a woman named Lila. They were together for 3 years. Then she ended it, saying she wasn't ready for marriage. Marcus was heartbroken, but instead of fighting, he said, "I love you. I wanted a future with you, but I won't beg for a life you don't want to share." Then he left. No drama, no guilt, just quiet dignity, and he kept living. He traveled, he wrote, he built a small business, he stayed kind, he stayed humble. A year later, Lila reached out. She said, "I keep thinking about how you walked away, not angrily, not bitterly, just peacefully. Just." And I realized I didn't just lose a partner. I lost someone who loved me without trying to change me. Marcus replied, "I still care, but I've built a life that doesn't revolve around that chapter. If you want to talk, I'm here, but I won't go back to being someone I'm not." He didn't ask for reconciliation. She just said, "I hope you're happy." And then, after a pause, "I miss who we were." That's the discipline of desire. When you release your attachment to the outcome, you gain power, not over them, but over yourself. And that self-possession, that's what makes someone look back and say, "I didn't just lose love, I lost a rare kind of person." Chapter 5. The silence. The silence that speaks. Most people think communication is about words. Stoics know better. Sometimes the loudest messages are the ones never spoken. Silence, when wielded with intention, is the most powerful form of presence, because silence forces reflection. When you stop responding immediately, when you stop chasing, when you disappear, not with anger but with grace, something happens. The other person starts to think, Why did they stop? What did I do? Did I take them for granted? And in that space, memory awakens. They remember the way you listened, the way you didn't need constant validation, the way you were comfortable in your own skin. And suddenly, your silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage, but sometimes to stop is an act of courage too. To stop explaining, to stop justifying, to stop proving, to simply be without performance. That's what lingers. Because in a world of noise, silence is sacred, and sacred things are remembered." Let me tell you about Sophia. She was in a relationship with a man who was emotionally unavailable. He'd disappear for days, then reappear like nothing happened. She tried everything: confrontation, therapy, ultimatums. Nothing changed. So one day she did something radical. She stopped responding, not with anger, not with drama, just silence. She didn't block him, she didn't delete him, she just stopped engaging, and she focused on her life, her art, her family, her peace. Months passed. Then, one day, he showed up at her door. He said, "I didn't realize how much I relied on you until you weren't there." Sophia didn't invite him in. She said, "I'm not the same person I was. If you want to know me now, you'll have to meet me here, not in the past." He left, but a year later, he sent a letter, not asking for anything, just saying, "Your silence taught me more than your words ever did." That's the power of strategic stillness, not silence as punishment, but silence as integrity. When you refuse to participate in chaos, when you withdraw not to hurt, but to preserve your peace, that's when you become unforgettable. Because you showed them what real strength looks like. And once they've seen it, they can't unsee it. Chapter 6. The virtue of self-sufficiency. There's a quiet tragedy in modern love. We've been taught that, to be loved, we must be needed. But the truth, according to the Stoics, is the opposite. The more self-sufficient you are, the more desirable you become. Not because you're unattainable, but because you represent something rare, a person who doesn't need love to feel whole. You love because you choose to, not because you're empty without it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's the core of Stoic self-sufficiency. It's not isolation. It's not emotional detachment. It's not coldness. It's inner abundance. And when you live from that place, your presence becomes a gift, not a demand. Let me tell you about Daniel. He was deeply in love with a woman named Clara. They were together for 4 years. He adored her. But over time, he noticed a pattern. The more he gave, the less she seemed to value him. He was always available, always planning dates, always initiating, always reassuring her. And yet she grew distant. One day, after a particularly draining argument, Daniel sat alone in his apartment and read a passage from Epictetus. "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Something clicked. He realized he had been grieving the love he wanted instead of rejoicing in the love he had. And worse, he had made his happiness dependent on her attention. So he made a decision, not to leave, but to rebalance. He started spending more time with friends. He reconnected with old hobbies. He began meditating every morning. He stopped initiating every conversation. He let space exist between them. Clara noticed, not immediately, but slowly. She started asking, "What have you been up to?" And for the first time, Daniel didn't rush to fill the silence. He said, "Living my life." And he meant it. He wasn't being cold. He wasn't punishing her. He was simply no longer orbiting her. 6 months later, Clara broke down in tears during a conversation. She said, "I keep thinking about how present you were at the beginning and how I took it for granted. Now you're still kind, still loving, but you don't need me. And that makes me realize maybe I need you more than I thought." Daniel didn't respond with triumph. He said, "I love you, but I won't lose myself to prove it." That's the power of self-sufficiency. When you stop needing someone to feel complete, you become the kind of person they can't forget, because you showed them what real love looks like, not dependence, but freedom. And freedom is intoxicating. People don't miss neediness. They miss the person who made them feel safe in their own skin. and that only comes from someone who is already safe in theirs. Chapter 7, the grace of letting go. Letting go is not defeat. It is one of the most courageous acts of love. Most people think love means holding on. Stoics know that true love sometimes means releasing. Seneca wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." We get attached to the idea of someone, not the reality. We fall in love with the future we imagined, not the person in front of us. And when that future doesn't unfold, we suffer. But the Stoic doesn't suffer because reality didn't match their fantasy. They suffer less because they loved the person, not the projection. So when it's time to let go, they do so with dignity, not with rage, not with resentment, but with gratitude. And that, more than anything, makes someone miss you, because you didn't leave with bitterness. You left with grace. Let me tell you about Amina. She was in a long-term relationship with a man named Karim. They'd been together since college. Everyone assumed they'd marry. But over time, Karim changed. He became distant, cold. He stopped sharing his dreams. He stopped asking about hers. She tried to fix it. Therapy, conversations, weekend getaways, nothing worked. One day Karim said, "I think I've fallen out of love with you." Most people would have fought or pleaded, bargained. Amina did something different. She looked at him and said, "Thank you for telling me the truth. That takes courage." Then she packed her things, not in silence, not in anger, but with care. She left a note on the table. "I loved you deeply. I don't regret a single moment. I don't regret a single moment. But love can't be forced. I hope you find peace." And she walked away. No drama, no public posts, no attempts to make him jealous, just quiet closure. Months passed. Then, one evening, Karim showed up at her sister's birthday dinner. He looked tired. He said, "I keep thinking about your note. No one's ever let me go with that much kindness. And the weirdest thing, I miss you more now than when we were together." Amina smiled gently. She said, "Maybe you don't miss me. Maybe you miss what I represented, someone who loved you without trying to change you." Karim nodded, eyes wet, and in that moment he realized he hadn't lost her because she left. He lost her because he stopped showing up. And her grace in leaving made her unforgettable. That's the Stoic way. When you let go with love, you don't erase the past, you honor it. And that honor becomes a quiet ache in their heart. Because they know they had something rare, and they let it go. Chapter 8. The greatest weapon in making someone miss you isn't your looks, your charm, or your attention. It's your mindset. Because people don't miss superficial things. They miss depth. They miss stillness. They miss the person who didn't react to every mood swing, every slight, every insecurity. They miss the one who remained calm when everything was falling apart. That's what the Stoics trained for. Not just to endure hardship, but to transcend it. Epictetus, born a slave, taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Most people, when hurt, react. They lash out, they withdraw, they beg, they manipulate, they try to control the uncontrollable. But the Stoic, they respond with wisdom, with clarity, with purpose. And that kind of mind, unshaken, unmoved, is magnetic, even in absence. Let me tell you about Julian. He was in love with a woman named Naomi. They were deeply connected. But Naomi struggled with anxiety. She'd pull him close, then push him away. She'd accuse him of not caring, then disappear for days. Julian could have left, or he could have broken down. Instead, he stayed steady. When she accused him, he didn't defend. He said, "I hear you're hurting, I'm here." When she disappeared, he didn't chase. He sent one message, "I care. I'm not going anywhere, but I won't live in uncertainty." And he lived his life. He didn't stop loving her, but he refused to be her emotional crutch. After a year of this cycle, Naomi ended it, saying she didn't want to drag him down. Julian didn't argue. He said, "I loved you. I still do. But love isn't enough if it costs you your peace." Then he walked away. And for the first time, he focused entirely on himself. Therapy, meditation, writing. He didn't do it to get over her. He did it because it was time. 2 years later, Naomi found him on social media. She saw his photos, calm, centered, radiant. She sent a message, "You were the only person who never tried to fix me. And now that I'm healing, I realize I didn't just lose a lover. I lost my anchor." Julian replied, "I hope you found your own." She wrote back, "I'm getting there. But I'll always wonder what would have happened if I'd been ready when you were there." That's the power of an unshakable mind. When you don't react to chaos, you become the calm in their memory. When you don't beg for love, you become the standard. When you walk away with peace, you leave behind a silence so full of meaning that it echoes for years. And that echo, that's what makes someone miss you badly, not because you were perfect, but because you were grounded. And in a world of turbulence, groundedness is the rarest thing of all. Chapter 9, The Legacy of Character. People forget words, they forget gifts, they forget promises, but they never forget how you made them feel. And how you made them feel wasn't about what you said, it was about who you were. Stoicism teaches that character is destiny, not fame, not wealth, not charm, but virtue. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. When you live by these principles, you don't just build a life, you build a legacy, and that legacy lingers in the hearts of those who knew you. Let me tell you about Elias. He wasn't the loudest man in the room. He wasn't the richest, he wasn't the most handsome, but everyone who met him said the same thing. He made me feel like I mattered. He listened, he showed up, he kept his word. When his partner Lila decided to end their relationship, he didn't fight. He said, "I respect your truth. I'll always care for you." Then he left. No drama, no guilt, just dignity. Years passed. Lila married someone else, built a life. But every now and then she'd catch herself thinking, would Elias have reacted like that? Would he have understood? Would he have stayed calm? Would he have stayed calm? One night, during an argument with her husband, she broke down. She said, "I miss how safe I felt with Elias. Not because he fixed everything, but because he never made me feel broken." When you live with integrity, you become a benchmark, not just for love, but for what love should feel like. And when someone compares their present to that standard, they don't just miss you, they mourn the quality of connection they once had, and that grief. That's the deepest kind of missing. Because it's not about losing you. It's about losing the best version of themselves that existed when you were near. Chapter 10, The Final Truth. After all these stories, all these principles, here's the final truth. You cannot make someone miss you, but you can become someone worth missing. You can live with such integrity, such presence, such quiet strength, that your absence becomes a lesson, a reminder, a quiet ache in the heart. And that, more than any text, any gift, any grand gesture, is what lasts. Stoicism doesn't teach you to manipulate, it teaches you to master. Master your emotions, master your reactions, master your life. And in that mastery, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because you're finally free. Free from need, free from desperation, free from the need to be remembered. And ironically, it's in that freedom that you're remembered most. So if you want to be missed, don't chase, don't plead, don't perform. Just be, or be kind, be strong, be still, be whole. And when you walk away, let your silence speak louder than your words ever could. Because in the end, people don't miss noise, they miss peace. They don't miss drama, they miss depth, they don't miss need, they miss you, the real you, the one who loved without losing themselves, the one who left with grace, the one who even in absence remained unshaken. That's the Stoic way, and that's how you make them miss you badly. Not by trying, but by being.